Will it ruin my movie if I spoil the plot twist? The answer may surprise you.
Alert. Alert. Spoilers ahead.
Anyways. Psych. Devilman, everything is Devilman, everything is Devilman, you know what the Devilman, all my friends are Devilman, gonna get together with them, gonna make a Devilman, and did you think you was either dead, it's just irrelevant, tell me I'm a governor, my fault is fucking heaven sent, fill up with the government, fuck you all the fucking friends, try to take it into we can tell you fucking that's a trend, just don't go over your head, you're just gonna love again, say it fucking to your friends, till you take it back from them, Devilman, 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 everything is Devilman, I'm kind of like a millennial Hunter S. Thompson. I'm kind of like a millennial Allen Ginsberg. I'm kind of like a millennial Alan Watts type of figure, but like also like a Charles Manson, but I look like a John Lennon Charles Manson, you know? But I've kind of got that like, you know, YouTuber, like, you know, Endless Jess and like the other PC, the Radcon. But then, and they all look exactly the same. All of them, all the analysis ones, they all look exactly the same. So I'm kind of like that. So you could just say I'm one of those guys, I guess. But I'm like the one that was like also into that other, you know, other side of it. The Satan side. I'm big into the Satan side of things. George Carlin. You see? Louis C.K. before he started showing his dick to people, I guess, and white guilt. I'm like really fucking high right now. See, I'm just a Devilman. I'm just another Devilman in a long line of Devilman, a long history of Devilman. There's a million Devilman. So, I don't really know that much about Hunter S. Thompson. I got called out on this on my last Digibro vs. Everybody live stream, the first one rather. I wouldn't be the last one when you guys watch this. In any case, I've never like read most of these. I just bought them recently. The only one I've actually read was Kingdom of Fear, his memoir of sorts. What resonates with me is the title, Gonzo Journalism, and like the iconography of Hunter S. Thompson and what he at least supposedly stood for, you know, like what the legend of who he is. In the 70s, Hunter S. Thompson had something he called the Freak Power Movement. He tried to become the mayor of his city of, I don't fucking remember where, middle of nowhere, bumfuck, and he almost won with the Freak Power Movement, where he was embracing the youth culture and the forward-thinking ways of the grass-smoking, independent youths in the community. And I really think that's cool as shit, and so I co-opted it for myself. There you go! Dear Edit Bro, don't forget your idea for the gag where you say unrelated song by X and then you play other songs that make the points. Yesterday I dropped acid and watched My Neighbor Totoro, and I gotta tell you, there's the part where the kids are running around the house that they just moved into, because it's not really like a house yet, certainly not their house yet, because it's just a big empty shit pile, and they're moving stuff in. So they're just like hauling ass everywhere. And that's exactly not only what it was like when we were moving in here, because this place is just like a big old dust bucket that we can put our stuff in and have a house. Not nearly as terrifying as the house they live in, of course, but like, you know, we were hauling ass like that. But because the upstairs is still mostly unfurnished, like, we basically just spend all our time downstairs, and then I come up here to vlog. So I'm just like running around like a fucking velociraptor through this goddamn house because it's just a big empty space. And like, I want to be able to just put the camera down in like random corner A and be like, bam, this is a shot. Yo, Digibro talking to you. But you see, it's just a white wall behind me. So there needs to be like a poster there or something. And we have a bunch of posters that we want to put up. But I don't just want to put up the same goddamn anime posters you guys have literally been seeing in my videos forever. Like, granted, I have a lot of posters that I haven't been like using at all or haven't been in the cycle lately that I can put up that would look new. But, like, it's just going to be anime posters and shit. So, like, I want to get more, like, tapestries and weird stuff and crap. You know, crap that I think is aesthetically interesting in some way, regardless of its relevance to anime, since I am not just an anime YouTuber, as anyone who follows me would surely tell you. To Hayao Miyazaki, what he is doing seems obvious. It seems like the only way to make film. It's the only way that makes sense. If you're going to make a movie, why not make it the best possible movie? Because while everything in life is temporary, your movie actually has a chance of sticking around. Even though you're gonna say a million things every day, you're gonna talk to people all fucking day, you're gonna send 1,000 fucking tweets, it's all ephemeral, it all goes away, but films that are great will keep being remembered, as he has evidenced. So to him, there is no other movie to be made, and it doesn't make sense to try to make another movie, and that's why he's so offended by people trying to make other movies, because the way he sees it, no one else can make a movie like him, because it's too fucking hard. He has had to put in too much effort. You know? Like, Hayao Miyazaki has been in an industry that's been at odds with his whole way of doing things from the beginning. At no point, like, you know, since TV anime's creation, has everyone been trying to make Hayao Miyazaki films. Except for in this period in the 80s where everyone was trying to make masterpieces. But, like, you know, that period ended, and now it's just him. It's just Miyazaki, who is the last man standing because he's the only one who caught on with a big enough audience worldwide. And the funny thing is that now, worldwide, everyone's got, you know, watching anime, but the anime that everyone's watching, because it's not just one thing reaching everyone, it's a lot of small things reaching small communities, and so the question becomes, how do we make the art, if it can't be as big and expensive, how do we make it as specific as possible? And that's sort of the direction that anime's been working in, but not fast enough, basically. That animation online is so much more interesting and inventive, it just doesn't have the budget to be more than, you know, one animator finishing a 3-minute project once a year. You know, but like, if there was the sentiment behind art that we all wanted every animator we saw to have the opportunity to be Hayao Miyazaki, we would have to put a lot of money into that. And that rests on us. And it also rests on them to figure out a way for us to give them that money. Because a lot of the people who want to give it to them don't know how. This is not the rant I intended to go on in this section at all. This is completely not the rant I was going for at all. I don't even remember what the original rant was. What do you need to know to make a Hayao Miyazaki film? I mean, if you just copy what he does wholesale, and you copy all the elements that repeat throughout his films, and you produced something that was literally identical, you didn't even try to change anything about it, you could pretty much create a convincing Miyazaki film. It might not have anything new to say, because you can't put words into his mouth that you don't know already, but like, if you've watched all his movies, you could confidently get a sense of like what he's about, what he looks for, at least in characters and setting. Like, what is this dude going for? You know, if you broke down all those little archetypical elements of what he does and you just recreated it, you could do that. But what it would take is going through as much effort as he took to create it. You would have to meticulously craft this film to be as good as it can possibly be. And that is so time-consuming that there's no reason anyone would do it, because no one would have that much passion for replicating what someone else did. Most people want to realize their own vision. But most people are not going to actually put as much effort into doing them as Miyazaki puts into doing him. And Miyazaki is often singled out because of the fact that he's an auteur filmmaker, and again, films last forever. They're very easy to preserve. But in the modern era, you can just as easily preserve performance arts, you can preserve individual events, you can perform, record live shows. I've done Q&A panels that I've, staged in video to be a video. Like the one, my After Dark panel at Toricon, where, I come out of the bathroom, invite the fans in, and it's like a vlog until it becomes a Q&A panel. I forgot what the fuck I was saying. Let me explain depth. Depth is just how much information can you pack into the smallest space. Density, depth, basically the same thing, except that density usually refers to the amount of different ideas being put in the same place, whereas depth can be one idea, but it makes you think a lot harder. So if there is something that taps into, if there's a work that taps into a cluster of let's say existential thought, there's one image that references the entirety of this genre of thought, and then applies that to the scenario currently ongoing. And now in order to unpack the current scenario, you must then have understanding of this entire concept. For instance, the movie Grave of the Fireflies, which the Ghibli Cast episode on came out recently. Really great, had a great time doing it because I ended up loving the movie. Unexpectedly, having hated it in the past, just because I thought it was boring, because I realized that it's mostly symbolism. The movie is, overwhelmingly, a lot of the images are symbolic, and when you think about what they mean, it causes you to think about a lot of other shit, and you have to know a lot of shit to even understand what the symbols mean in the first place. You have to be someone who not only is literate on understanding art, in order to unpack the images, or unpack, what it means for them to be framed in the cinema, to be framed in a Ghibli film from 1986, or 1988, that in itself has meaning. 89? I don't fucking remember. But, fucking goddammit. Look, all I'm trying to get at is that Hayao Miyazaki is only as good at doing him as the best wrestlers are at doing them, as the best ballerinas, the best painters, anybody who's the best at what they do. But how you become the best is just by recognizing what are the things you need to do, and then doing them and putting as much effort into it as you can, and then you are the best at what you do. So, in a case like mine, I have to identify, what do I do best, first of all, and then how do I go about doing that the best I can possibly do it, and, in so doing, be the best me that I can be. Because, in the end, Hayao Miyazaki is the greatest animator not because you could just copy what he did and make a perfect movie. It's because he figured out how to make a perfect movie that was unmistakably a Hayao Miyazaki movie. He figured out how to draw all the different ideas that were already in the ether, because every idea is already out there. Every theme is already out there. Everything. There's no possible way to say something new. You can just say a personalized version of the things that have already been so that we can understand it in a more nuanced and specific way. This is why, at this point, the most valuable art is the extremely postmodern, the extremely individual, the extremely, like, non-participatory in any movement because it is just a pure identity expression. Art like that is what is going to move people from going forward because we already know all the archetypes, and in this information age where we exhaust through them as quickly as reading through TV tropes for an afternoon, we can't be sated by just seeing tropes. We need to know something more specific. We need to know who is that person, because we've grown up in a world where we see an unbelievable number of individual perspectives all the time. And even though they form into these little cliques and form these little identities, and sometimes it looks like it's just a few big monstrous waves, it seems like way more of the people are the ones complaining about these groups than the people who are in these groups. You know, like, most of us are just kind of like, I don't want to have to call myself a part of a group to you know, have to make a statement. Anyway, we'll touch on this later. Point is that if you're Hayao Miyazaki, then how you make your masterpiece is you spend 3 or 4 years working tirelessly, because that's about how long it takes to draw the amount of images it takes to make 90 minutes of every image is perfect and says what I wanted it to say. Now, Miyazaki's movies are not even necessarily especially deep. Not even compared to Isao Takahata's films. However, they have a more performative art aspect to them, in that the films flow better. They feel better to watch. They have better design. They just are more inviting and engaging on, like, a physical, intimate level that people resonate with before they even stop to think about something. And, you know, if you're Hideaki Anno, you craft your masterpiece by carefully considering every single image across 26 episodes of a show. And that's easy to you because you are Hideaki Anno. And it would never even occur to you to put an image in your show that had no meaning, because that is not how you approach making a show. Hiroyuki Imaishi, on the other hand, does not give a fuck if the images have meaning in themselves. All he cares about is the performative element. Do the images flow well into each other? Are they iconic? Will this get your blood pumping? There's a reason that he tore up Kazuki Nakashima's script for episode 1 of Gurren Lagann and said, this won't make me hot-blooded and want to do the impossible. And then he tore up 4 episodes of scripts for Kill La Kill, saying that, it didn't want to make him put on a school uniform and go fight, people. And then he said the same thing about Promare when he came to him with that. The reason for this is that Kazuki Nakashima is a playwright. He is not an anime writer. He has only written anime that he did with Hiroyuki Imaishi, who's probably just friends with him. But he's like a noted playwright who writes deep, wordy things that are dialogue-driven. So when he has to be asked to work in animation, Imaishi works with him because of the fact that he is super deep, that he has the deep themes. And while Gurren Lagann mostly plays on archetypes, like, really broad archetypes, Kill La Kill tries to tell a lot of way more specific stories in the middle of a broad story, and so it is a little bit artsier and a little bit weirder, but in spite of that, Imaishi still put the engagement of the flow of images at the forefront at all times. If it meant that no one was going to get the show or even think about the deeper themes it has, that's fine, because it needs to abrasively, be as fun and audacious as possible first, because that's Imaishi. And that's that point, I guess. I don't even remember what the original rant was. So I was just watching Dark Spook Remastered Part 2 on the Blue Glow, and, I hit play right after that last clip, and Jesse said, what was the line he said that made me fucking die? Oh, fuck, I need to redo this. Oh yeah. So I just hit play on Dark Spook Remastered Part 2 on the Blue Glow, and Jesse said, "I'm an altered fucker," and it made me laugh really, really hard. Even though up to that point I hadn't been paying attention to the video, I only caught this joke because I happened to hit play after a long period of silence, and he said it right then, making it hilarious. It made me think about how everything is very momentary and, you know, state of mind driven, and how much attention you're paying, or who you are, or what you get, or what state of mind you're in, or what place you're in life, how it all affects the way that you engage with art on a moment-to-moment level, to where sometimes jokes you didn't think were funny one time, you think are funny another time, but it really depends on who you're with. No, the show you liked that you showed your friend wasn't way worse than you thought it was. They just are not the same person that you are and don't get it, and they weren't having the same experience. You probably should have thought harder about the mood. Make sure you only put on shows that you know the mood they characterize. I'm on another fucking... This is not what I wanted to rant about. If you watch a movie enough times, eventually you will probably know it well enough that you can confidently make statements about what you think it is, because you will have, like, you know, completely internalized it, although you also will require the language to understand it, which you will have to develop by watching other films and participating in discussions of them, surely, like to, you know, compare notes with other people, make sure that you're not just totally in your own fucking world. But those high-level reviews, like, that's like a category that you want to put, like, a name on, you know? And then, like, because it's not the only reason to review. Like, not everyone watches movies that way. Not everyone wants to know the whole depth. They just want to know, like, what do I fucking go, like, should I pay money to go to the theater to see this? And then there's other people who are like, I just want to know first impressions so that I can, like, make a quick decision on this. You know, there's all these different categories, and we've given them all names, like first impression, review, analysis, stuff like that. However, by giving them names, what people did was made these categories very recognizable, but not necessarily the theory behind them recognizable. Not necessarily the idea of, like, how to approach each of these. Because if you're making a first impression, then the point is to just, like, get out the information as fast as humanly possible while conveying as much nuance in as few words as you can. Communicate as large a breadth of the most important things about a movie in the shortest amount of time. But you have to be able to navigate the movie and determine, like, in 10 words, what was this movie? You know, like, when I walked out of Birdman and I was like, I think I said, I don't know what this means, but the only words I would use to discuss that were, like, absurdist and percussive. You know, and if that means anything to you, go watch the movie, because, like, those two, if you know what I mean by that, if that sounds interesting, you know, that's only useful to a handful of people, but, like, that's what my skill is, that's what I do here. And I can do that on every different level. I can do the small, the big, the whatever, but when you start naming it that, when you start naming them and codifying them that way, then it forces not only formula to start getting involved, where it encourages you to approach different art the exact same way, and then it becomes, well, if I can't structure what I'm talking about into a first impression or a review or an analysis, or if there's not enough interesting about it to do an analysis, but the things I'm going to say about it aren't really a review, this is where it starts getting complicated. And then there's people from the outside who just interpret it as first impressions is 250 words, and a review is 500 words, and an analysis is 1,500 words. But their analysis is, like, literally just a summary of the episode you watched, you know? And this is something I watched happen, like, in the YouTube communities that I have spawned, you know? Like the Brony analysis community, where it happened very quickly. And, like, people were calling their stuff analysis just because that was, like, I guess... this doesn't need to go on, I already made my point. Images. Billions of images. That's what I eat. Because at the end of the day, it all means the same thing, so you might as well just see as many different things as possible. That's why in my vlogs, I try to make every shot look different. And I understand why people had a problem with the filters, because it seems like it's not really showing you something different. It's still my room, it's just a different color. But to me, the point of the colors was that they were trying to, like, enhance whatever I saw as the mood of the video. Like, if I thought it was trying to communicate an emotion that would be enhanced by having everything be blue, then it just makes sense to make it blue as opposed to normal, especially because I'm in a place where, like, I can't change the set to look sad. You know, like, I don't have anything. I don't have a set. I don't have space. But what I can do is in post try to do something to communicate more emotion. And this was just experimentation at the time because I hadn't even really been trying to do this that hard up until that point. You know, I like had thought about the images in my vlogs, but I wasn't trying to like pull out their most poignant emotion. But you know, now I kind of am. But at the same time, like, a lot of the time, the things I'm talking about are just fucking high-minded concepts that have nothing to... I don't know why I keep saying high-minded. Like, that makes it sound like it's fancy. I don't mean that to sound fancy. Like I said, nothing's really fancy. Like, high-minded just means that it's more complicated. But as long as you just have someone explain it to you, you know it now. Nothing is hard. Nothing in this world is hard. You just need to have it explained to you in terms that you will get. And oftentimes, flat terminology is not something you're ever going to learn because it's not interesting, because it's not relatable, because the only people who get it are people who study it and are passionate about it. But anyone can understand it. You just need to translate it back for them. And that's what art is for. Rick and Morty, the reason so many fucking scientists and all these bullshit people fucking love the show and suck its dick is because the show is just taking super advanced concepts, making them into split-second funny jokes because we're at a point in society where everyone is supposed to kind of know these things. And it's really just a celebration of the fact that the Overton window has moved far enough that this show can be on television. That's why we're so excited about the goddamn thing. You see, there's a lot of geniuses in this world. Miyazaki's an animation genius. Hideaki Anno is a directing genius. You know, there's people who are artistic geniuses, jazz musicians, all kinds of geniuses. I am a genius. My special genius is I understand genius. And I can... I feel like I've heard this before. I don't feel like I actually made up this idea, this genius thing. I feel...
This writer is a genius. I don't know if this is in this world.
Oh God! The main character of the DCO is
I figured out that I was
of the way, it was all drugs. Cause I've just been making the same goddamn fucking video for 15 goddamn fucking years. It's always just been drugs. None of this has anything to do with finally having the personal space for a proper Nicolas Cage breakdown that I've always dreamed of. Dabs on dabs!
Look at this fucking smorgasbord of techno-futurism we've got here. This is all weed crap. And this thing, it's funny because this tries to be as old and rustic and non-futuristic as possible. This is where you can put some fucking finely granulated leaf into this box and plug a battery that does not even have a fucking cap on it, like a unprotected battery. you stab into this box, and it just, like, heats up smoke, and it comes out of this little hole. This is, like, the ultimate living off the land. You know, it's got fucking Yggdrasil on it. Well, okay. Let's put that behind us. This is steampunk bullshit. Alright? This is a vape. And what I found out, because I bought this stupid vape, like, ages ago, because I thought I liked smoking, and I thought vaping is supposed to be, like, a safer way to do the same thing. Except that vaping doesn't feel anything like smoking, because it's fucking a completely different type of experience. So if you're someone like me who only really liked smoking because of literally the experience of smoking, not because you like nicotine, in fact, nicotine doesn't really do much for me, kind of just gives me a head rush and makes me feel sick. I just like to go outside and stand for 5 minutes, and I like the act of smoking, which is why I love smoking blunts, because weed is way the fuck better than tobacco, you know? But in any case, this machine, turns out, is built to just... This is just a random fucking thing we bought from some kid, okay? Like, this piece that I'm holding, this dab... let me take a step back and explain this in clearer terms, now that I really understand what I'm trying to say. I bought this device for like $60, because it's like the cheapest imaginable vape box. And until this very vlog, I have had no real concept of like what this was. This is just a battery. This is just a big battery that's got some like dials and doohickeys on it, and like a cool LCD screen that tells you things about how the vape is working. But all the shit that matters is not even a part of this base. This is the shit that matters. This is just a capsule containing a liquid that is burned by the battery, exuding smoke from the hole. This is the concept. And you can just put whatever the fuck you want into this little capsule, and these capsules can, even though they look like a fancy, cool, metal, like, futuristic thing, it's just a cheap, you know, these can be mass-produced very easily and cheaply. You can fill whatever liquid you want in there, and they're built to be universally applicable, so that if you buy a fucking random dab pen from a 19-year-old full of concentrated weed oil from God knows where in California, it can just go right into your fucking box you already bought at the store. This is literally what they make cyberpunk fucking books about. That's what it's about, you know? That's like what the capsules are in Dragon Ball, basically. The end is baked into the beginning. Get it? Life is characterized by death. Alan Watts quote. You know, there's the yin and the yang, Eastern philosophy. You know, you can't have life without death, because the only thing that gives life meaning in a literal sense is that it is the not being dead. So there you go. That is what living is. I mean, that doesn't mean you can't, like, have people dying. Like, you just need the concept of death. You don't need to actually have people die. Because that doesn't, I mean, it doesn't make the idea of death go away to not die. Just means you are continuously alive. This idea of the end being a part of the beginning is very popular as a philosophical thought, because if you try to explain anything far enough, you always are going to find yourself back at the beginning. And you can't really characterize the beginning without thinking about the end. So, like, you know, if you go far enough in any direction, you hit the beginning and the end. So, like, to try to go to those two extremes symbolically in a piece of art especially gives your work a sense of breadth and depth, that you are, like, exploring everything. You are going to the end caps of whatever, you know, thought you're on. So, like, Neon Genesis Evangelion is a show that is about communication, and it goes into as much depth on that subject as it possibly can by having as many different types of character personalities as it can manage, as many different like generations of people and like types of people with certain psychoses. He's specifically focusing on people who have difficulty communicating. You know, not necessarily people who are healthy at communicating, though those characters do exist in the show. Like, he explores the topic of communication as deeply as he could. And he goes from beginning to end, and the end is referenced in the beginning is referenced in the end. Like, there's just lots of interconnectivity throughout the story to suggest that, like, you know, it's just history repeating itself forever as we endeavor to conquer this basic problem that lies at the heart of human nature, essentially. And a lot of art tries to capture that feeling. Endless Jess did this hardcore in his End of Eva referencing end of his Horseshoe Saga, the Horseshoe finale. And this is what gave it such an epic sense of finality and scope, is that he presented it in terms such as those, and with heavy reference to many other media which had already, you know, captured this feeling. He is paying homage to End of Eva, to CM Punk's Pipe Bomb, like, whatever were his biggest influences that were these, like, totalizing moments of an artist's career, like, that's what he was trying to, you know, pay homage to and then also do in the same breath. That's what I want to do with how they marketed. Full stop. I'm just telling you that I'm gonna do that because it's already been done. Jesse already covered the subject of, you know, YouTuber in his room doing as much as you can feasibly do with the medium, exploring its meta, exploring the characteristics of the persona of the YouTuber. I'm not different enough from him that my message would come out wholly different if I attempted to do the same. So there are elements of what I do that are different from him. I can talk about anime. And a big part of what I think is the next step forward for anime discussion is that we tend to talk about shows very individualistically. Like, we look at a show and we judge that show, even though we interact with shows in a way where we're constantly comparing them, where they have to compete with each other for our time, where, like, you know, the culture surrounding their release isn't endemic to how they are interpreted. You know, the quality of a show has little to do with how many people watch the show and how many people care about the show and talk about the show, or even how highly they score it. But what does have a lot to do with that is how they marketed. So that's why I want to talk about marketing in anime, is I want to bridge this gap between people as community members looking at themselves in relationship to anime, and what relationship is anime trying to present to you? What relationship does anime want to have with you? And the first show that I talk about, Be the Beginning, this isn't going to come through as much because of the fact that that show did a bad job of marketing. So, like, I chose to use it as my launching point just to show you how companies will sort of weirdly go halfway and then stop. And it's because they don't seem to just, like, understand how to make their shows pop. So, you know, I kind of talk about that in that, but I guess that's it for that subject. I am obsessed with Hideaki Anno. I made a whole video series about him, breaking down his career, and I've thought about him a lot more ever since then as I continue watching and rewatching his shows. I think that Hideaki Anno is obsessed with communication because it's something that he's not good at. Every time he's ever been presented in any media, he's presented as somebody who really struggles to communicate with people in a way that they will grasp. And all of his shows feature characters who, you know, who deal with communication issues, but more importantly, just the way he communicates through his film, it's very clear that he's trying to, like, you know, this is like a easier way for him to communicate that will reach people. Like, that the images he puts on display make more sense to viewers than if he were to try to explain what he's thinking about. So, like, that's why when people ask him questions about Eva, it's like hard for him to explain it, because he's like, you know, this was the best way he could explain it. And if you tried to ask him another way, he's like, if I wanted to just say it in words, I wouldn't have made a goddamn show. And I think that, again, this is kind of the whole point of art, because art does not progress thought necessarily in terms of like what is philosophically understood. Like, and it can, because sometimes there are people who are like, you know, just incredibly genius people who are forward-thinking and happen to be authors and present their forward-thinking ideas in parable, you know? But, like, nonetheless, for the most part, like, if you are writing a book, you're not saying something that no one's ever realized was possible. You're just relating an idea to people in a way that people who think like you will understand. And, you know, I think that Hideaki Anno, it's not necessarily that other people think like him, but so much that, you know, he thinks like most people, he just can't express his thoughts like most people. So he needs images, because images are a waypoint between the two of us, where he can show us something that, like, you know, like, if I drew you a picture of, like, a sunset over a cliffside, and that was the best terms I had to describe it, but what I drew for you was not what you had in your mind, you understand why, like, I would need pictures. And, yeah, so I consider myself to be a translator. I am a translator of intent. I am someone who looks at what someone did, and I'm pretty good at seeing what they were trying to do, and then telling other people what I think they were trying to do. And I'm not always right. I'm often convincing, whether I'm right or wrong, you know, which is why some people don't like me, because they think I'm wrong about certain things, and a lot of it's opinion, so it's hard to be right or wrong. It's just like, you can be right in certain ways, wrong in other ways, or, you know, other people can care about things you don't care about. Point being simply that I think I'm pretty good at looking at something and determining what was done. What was done here? What did people do to make this? What thought process would they have had to go through to make this thing happen? And, like, you know, if they did, these are the decisions they made, what does that say? Not necessarily about them, but about this, like, the approach that, like, had to have been taken to this work. Because there are certain things that have to be done. Like, if every image, like, let's say you're watching a Michael Bay movie and there's a cut every 4 seconds, you have to blame that on Michael Bay, because you know that that's something he did. So, like, you know, there's an extent to which, if you know enough about someone, especially if they have lots of interviews, and someone like Miyazaki, who's got books worth of his quotes, that where he's pretty explicit about his intent in the anime industry, you can watch his films with all that shit in mind and figure out where he showed it on screen, you know, told you without telling you. So, how they market it is my monument to communication. In the same way that Anno was trying to explain just the basics of human communication as he understood it, in a way that would, you know, like he had a deep understanding of it, he just couldn't express it in plain terms. In my video, I am not going to explain things in clear terms per se, so much as explain to you what people are trying to tell you. What people are trying to tell you about their stuff, whether they are succeeding in telling you the truth, or whether they even intend to, what they think they're doing, what they're actually doing, where they succeeded or failed, you know, how they marketed, what did they do? What did they think would work? Did it work? Probably not. Here's the thing, I don't really need to make how they marketed a highly produced and edited and crazy, big, epic, you know, beginning to end spanning piece in order to convey the ideas that I will be addressing in the story. In fact, a lot of what I'm going to explain in how they marketed, I have literally explained in this video. I've spoiled my entire fucking series. So why do I want to do it anyways? Well, because I think that as a human being and as an artist, I need to make this sort of a rite of passage, not really to prove anything to others or even to myself, but just to have it sort of put away inside of me. Because I feel that I come from a generation and a time when the idea of the isolated artist was highly romanticized. When the guy who left school to go do his own thing, like I looked up the Quentin Tarantino and Ryuhei Kitamura and these guys who literally like dropped out of high school, grabbed their friends, you know, the fucking Kevin Smith, like paid for his whole movie on credit cards and became like an indie sensation because they just made something that was so good because they had cribbed from everybody. They had like studied the meta of filmmaking and they had created like their own version of it that didn't have to be expensive because they had just found another way to use the meta of film to tell their story. And, you know, that's the kind of people who I look up to, and Jesse even more so than me because he's a few years older than me and like grew up watching way more TV and movies than I did. I grew up more on the internet, but I also, you know, came up kind of watching him and people like him and, you know, people like JonTron who is inherently in YouTube videos, AVGN onwards, there's always like playing with the meta of the video in the video. It's kind of inherent to the internet. The internet was meta from the start. But, like, Homestuck was the first thing that I think, like, did the beginning to end, explore the breadth of, like, what the internet at least was at a certain time, you know, in, like, and what programming was, and just, like, all the ideas that he could tell with, like, what was, like, understood in the world at all is all packed into Homestuck, right? That's why it's so fucking long, because the world has gotten fucking complicated. And even then, he kept it to just, like 13-year-olds online as the characters. But, like, so he captured the beginning to ending of that in the flashpoint of, like, early 2000s AIM and, like, early free-to-play games or something. Meanwhile, Jesse did it for YouTubers, as I said before, and, like, I don't think that me going all out and doing the huge meta thing and the beginning to end thing necessarily will, like, make the point of how they marketed better. I just think that there's an element of Huey's Law, the thing Nate's always talking about, that, like, if you make it big and powerful, more people will look at it because people will talk about it and people will be impressed by it, and that will help get your message out. And I definitely want that element because, like, these vlogs get maybe 10,000 views, even if they are, like, a distillation of what, for a lot of my closest fans, is, like, the best thing about my content. Like, I do want to get my message out there and affect culture, especially when it comes to anime. Like, when it comes to anime, I have kind of a vendetta. Like, this is a thing I've been participating in for such a long time, and there's so many things that I think could be changed just by, like, modernizing the understanding of how to market the shit, you know? And, like, understanding the young people of today who are into just, like, vastly more complicated and specific and fucking... Go look at, like, Rowdy Fuckers Cop Killers and try to wrap your mind around that shit. I know Ben's, like, 30, but Munchie and his cavalcade of arm retrieval people and followers are, like, what I view as, like, the modern internet youth culture who is utterly disinterested in the kind of meta shenanigans that we were up to because they literally grew up with Homestuck, which pushed the meta of the internet as it was when they were babies. And, like, now they have to present the new internet because Homestuck is dated to them. So, like, they're pushing this idea of what it is now, which is even crazier. And, like, people like me who have close communication with my fans on some level, and therefore I kind of interact with people that age and like understand what's coming in the techno future, I am kind of out of touch because I do spend most of my time offline and like, you know, with someone closer to my age. So like, you know, I think that in order to like remain relevant going into the future, like people need to rethink the approach to what are people going to look up to now. Because people don't, like, the young people don't look up to that same stuff that we did. And, like, a lot of that meta shit is most impressive as, like, something you get out when you're in your, like, late teens, early 20s. I grew up on light novels, which were the Japanese equivalent of these kind of movies. You know, just a bunch of super fucking young authors who would get their debut in their early 20s and blow up writing fucking weird shit that was all super meta and super personal. And like, I always thought I'd do that, but like when I blew up, I was kind of doing a more dispersonalized version of my shit. And I've always been doing a dispersonalized version of my shit because I've just slid all my personal shit onto the side channels or onto the old channel, like the stuff that actually looks like my brain, the stuff that's just like abrasive and loud and colorful and layered and has all kinds of shit going on and out of order and metatextual, like the stuff that looks like how I actually think, like this fucking video, that stuff has not been on the main channel before. It's never been a part of my big popular artistic statement. And so like, you know, I feel like I owe it to myself to close that chapter of my life completely before I can modernize myself and just be a serialized human in the machine. In a recent and excellent episode of the Ghibli cast that I do with Hypocrite and the Davoo over on the Procrastinators channel, I talked about Grave of the Fireflies and how this movie represents the death of a generation's identity. How this movie tells us that these kids who grew up in this world that was sort of founded on misconceptions, like, fell apart. This world crumbled around them, and most of this generation died out, either literally or figuratively, in that the entire identity of the country changed after this point. This is what I feel is coming for my generation of content creators. I feel like there's a shift happening to where it's impossible to be a creator without being a member of a community, because we have, by and large, moved beyond the self culturally. And granted, I think there are a lot of people, in fact, I think this is a huge problem endemic to, like, the SJW culture and stuff like that, is that a lot of the people who are in there have not really dealt with themselves yet. They are running in to try to help other people and to try to be a part of this, like, you know, movement when they, and, like, they're trying to make that their identity when they haven't really actually sorted out who they are. And I think you need to really figure yourself out and have, like, you know, beaten down your Maslow hierarchy first, you know, like, get yourself sorted as a human and then go try to help other people. And, like, that's sort of the point I feel like I am at, where I'm capable of doing that in my career, and I think that's what I need to do because, like, I just feel as though enough people have told this story, including myself, of, like, the YouTuber in his house by himself, and it's not really that relevant to the way people communicate online anymore. Everyone's in Discord servers now, everyone's in cliques now, everyone has closer communication, and I've been afraid of that because it has so many issues. Like, I think that system, like, you know, Discords breed lots of drama and bullshit that I don't like to deal with. However, they don't have to. You just have to be invested in making it not happen. In my Discord server, there came to be drama eventually, and it was inevitable that I couldn't really do anything about it because it was a Patreon Discord. Like, I didn't want to take anyone's side because they're all my patrons, and, like, that's the only real basis qualifier there was to be in this group. It's not really a group of friends and like-minded individuals. It's a group of patrons. So this is a place you can come where you have interaction with me, and there's other people who might be like you, but you're more likely to make friends with these people and go form an actual friendship elsewhere. I know I've told this story several times now, as people who are involved have pointed out. It's just such a great example to me of what I think is modern communication on the internet. People don't want to be a part of, like, large groups, like these big subreddits anymore, where you feel like your individual voice gets drowned out, because if you're not following what everyone else is saying, your voice gets drowned out. Where people like me, you know, who are like really popular on YouTube, but somehow on r/anime, I'm like extremely contentious, because like I've gone against a lot of what was like considered the consensus, you know, agreed upon truths of r/anime. And granted, a lot of the people on there don't agree with those things either, but they feel, you know, they feel put upon there, and they want to be in a community where people actually do like the stuff that they like. And, you know, now that I feel as though I'm not as like worried about being hurt by other people, because I'm a fully realized person. I don't need to worry about being hurt, because I have inner strength. You know, I have the strength of knowing myself and the people who are on my side, my loved ones, having an environment I'm happy to live in. So I'm good. I just need to, you know, now I can help other people. But I think that if you're someone who's in a position where like you're depressed and you don't really understand where you're going with your life, like, don't worry about other people yet. Do you first, because you are not going to be able to actually be helpful to anyone if they have to fucking baby you while you're trying to help them. Towards the back end of last year, I started to really feel like my life was complete. Even though I wasn't in the living situation I wanted to be in yet, and I wasn't really, you know, doing the best creative work that I wanted to be doing, I felt as though I was resolving something much larger, like a whole that was more fundamental, because in 2017, I had been doing the best I'd ever done. Like, I was making a lot of money. I was still living at home, but I was in a good living situation, and I was confident about moving on into the future, and I was making work that I was proud of at the time. But, like, I felt as though I needed to, you know, branch out and go out into the world to find something greater, because in spite of how happy I was with the baseline of my life, I felt alone. You know, I felt very lonely, and like I needed another person there. And so when I went out and ended up finding that person, it was like, okay, this takes precedence. Like, this is the hole that I was seeking to fill that's even bigger than the one that I'm seeking to fill with my art. And I already know how to fill the hole with my art, you know. But once I had resolved that, then it was like, okay, now let's find the big artistic project. So the hardest thing to explain about how they marketed, because I've explained, you know, the theory behind it, but if you watch the videos, you're going to probably be like, well, why the weird editing? Why the random breaks, the obnoxious shit, the loudness, because the way I want to edit my videos is to make them feel like how I think, to make them feel like you are living inside my brain, because that's something that I haven't been able to express to a wide enough audience to feel as though people really get what I'm about. 'Cause, like, I can tell you about things I like, but if you don't see that in my art, like, if my art doesn't look like art that I watch, like, the kind of shit I make, I've always prided myself on the fact that my analysis is just better and deeper than other people's. But, like, I don't generally find that much enjoyment from just watching, like, a good analysis video anymore. Like, it used to be that the reason they were so great is that most of them were, like, introducing whole new concepts of how to think about these new mediums, you know? Mr. B-Tongue's videos were just presenting new ways of thinking about video games, and, like, concepts that were only recently able to be fully explored by this medium, you know, that don't exist in other mediums. That's what makes his videos so interesting, but once he had laid that groundwork, you can just keep applying that to other games, but it's, who cares? You know, we already get it. I could do that myself. And so I feel like there's always been an element of my audience, especially amongst, like, my friends, people who actually think like I do, where they look at my work and they just think, yeah, that's good, but I could have done that. Like, if I wanted to, I could just watch a show and say what's good about it, and then, you know, and put minimal effort into editing it. And, like, they might not be as eloquent as I am at explaining certain things, sure. Like, I'm not to say that, like, if they just did a Digibro video, it would necessarily be as good as a Digibro video, but that, like, you know, if you watch a Best Guy Ever video, there are editing techniques in there that I would never have thought of, because it's completely unique to him. And, like, for me, that's what excites me about the video. It's not that he does good analysis of whatever show he's talking about, because, again, I can do that analysis myself. It's watching what that analysis means to him come to life. That's why Gurren Lagann Part 1 is so, his video Part 1, you know, is so great, is because it's just representing, like, that this show meant so much to him and his reaction to each individual element of it that it changed his entire outlook on life. And then episode 2 is just explaining how that happened, you know? And so, like, that's what's exciting about the video, is that, like, this show created a person who would make this video that is explosive and energetic and inspiring and passionate, and it's clear that, like, he got the show because he can recreate, you know, those same emotions without it just being him showing you scenes from the show or just explaining exactly what's in it, but, like, creating his own moments that reach his own highs. But, like, it's not the perspective of the show, which is of, you know, the people who made it. It's the perspective of some completely other guy in a totally other country interpreting it and putting his own spin on it, but that is someone who's closer to me, who's closer to my reality, someone who, you know, is like an American white guy anime fan who makes YouTube videos. Like, I can relate to it, and people who watch YouTube, who like YouTubers, relate to it, and that makes them understand the show better, you know? So, like, that's the through line that I kind of inhabit. Again, nothing I say is something that no one else could have figured out. But there are things I can express that no one else would express. And if it seems like Digi just throwing in random shit, no, it's all thought out. It's all there for a reason. It's just, you're just now seeing what my art looks like. And now you gotta fucking figure it out, you know? And, like, not everyone's gonna be into it, fine. But, like, this is what it looks like when I actually try to replicate what the world looks like and feels like and means to me in video form. And, like, Finish or Fail was the first taste of that, where I wanted, like, the reason that the show clips are in there is that I want you to see that when I say things like, you know, this character, like Mio, or I say, like, Yui wouldn't even be able to describe her friends in a way that would make sense to anybody. Like, I just see an image in my mind when I say that, and it's not actually, like, necessarily a scene from the show. I just know that that happened, and I can recall it. But if I just say it, then you don't feel that. You don't feel the ping back to the moment that you saw in your mind. So I have to show you a ping back. And that's why there were so many comments on that video that were like, man, I disagree with what Digi said, but I completely, like, understand his logic, because I showed you my work so that you couldn't question my logic. It's deeper communication, because I'm not just telling you in words, I'm telling you in my thoughts. And that is what new type communication's all about. Cowboy Bebop, the character Spike Spiegel, has a synthetic eye which is a slightly different color from his regular eye. And he romanticizes this fact by stating that one of his eyes sees the present, but the other is only capable of seeing the past, because he has an unresolved past. He's never gotten to, you know, resolve his feelings towards Julia and take down Vicious and the whole organization that he, you know, helped to, I guess, bring to power. So, I feel similarly about my content. That how they marketed, while it will be very impressive, and it will make a lot of people, like, if anything, it would do a better job of, you know, in one fell swoop making me gain more following and patrons, because it is a big movie showing impressive, ooh, look at the thing, I did all the work. Like, people respect that, and people will look at it. More so than they will vlogs like this, even though there are people who are more core to my audience who, because they appreciate these vlogs and what they are, as, like, being great at being what they are, those people would probably rather I just put these vlogs out all the fucking time. Especially because I see value in it. And the value that I find in it is that because of the fact that everything is repetitive, that every idea has been explored, that every message is out there, there are constant messages and misinformation bombarding you at all times. People are always trying to get you to follow their story. Everyone is just a pundit for their own side, for their own ideals, for their own mind. You're all just pundits trying to push your vision of what you think the world should be onto others. But the only way that you can actually incite any change is by understanding what everybody wants and then trying to find something that is at least satisfactory for as many people as humanly possible. You're probably never going to get everyone, but, you know, at the end of the day, those people will probably just give in because they're vastly outnumbered. But I don't think I'm that outnumbered. I think I've got the power to do something in this goddamn world. I've got an agenda to push. I want to move the Overton window of society in what we're willing to discuss and what we're willing to say. I want to just see people be able to be themselves without being fucking harassed, especially on the internet. I want to see the trolling culture that we've allowed to persist on the internet so long be stamped out, because the internet is the real world. And the older I get and the more I step into the real world, the more I appreciate that, and the more I see that, like, the set of skills and understanding that we need to make a society work, we have to, not only does the real world need to adopt a lot of the internet's ideas, the internet needs to adopt a lot of the real world's ideas, mostly when it comes to how to fucking treat other people. Which is understandable, because the internet was founded on people who were escaping from a society that didn't know how to deal with them. But, you know, we're all there now. So we all have to learn to deal with people. The era of using the internet to escape humanity is over. Humanity is all over the internet. You can't do anything in secret and make money off of it unless you are really good at having a cult following. But, like, you know, you better have some strong fucking benefactors in that group. Now, generally, I find most pundits to be insufferable, but I've slowly realized that everyone does, because pundit just means person. And really, they're just like loud people. Just people who have a platform and other people listen to them. But no one's ever going to love the pundit for not their side. You know, that's the whole point. You find the guy who says the thing that reaffirms your identity, and then you listen to them over and over and over again. And the reason that people become pundits is that they think they have figured it out. They think that they figured out what the answer is, they think they know how to go forward, and they want to inspire other people to think the same way they do. And I definitely want that. You know, I'm definitely one of those guys. I'm definitely someone who's like, ooh, I know how to fucking make people happy, you know. But I'm not taking the route of, like, trying to fucking... I'm neither, like, terrorist trying to deconstruct the nation by force, nor am I, like, Paragon trying to be, you know, I'm a gonzo journalist. I'm freak power. When your world's gotten too fucking weird, that's when I will appear and tell you it's all fucked. Just give it all up and go play in the muck that I'm dragging on up from the sewers and spraying all over on everyone. Yuck. That's my whole message. Boiled down into one lyric, you know, is come hang with me and I'll show you what's good, motherfucker. I'll show you what's good anime. I'll show you what's good music. I'll show you what's good artists, what's good people, what's good company, what's good food, and what's good motherfucking YouTubing. You know, I need to dedicate myself to doing a better job of promoting other people who I like. Frankly, this week not much has come out that's been great, except for Jesse's got his new Dark Souls Remastered Blue Glow, where he has brought back Babadook Spook. I realize that Babadook Spook might not be Jesse's most accessible character. He's a zombie mage man who goes around raping students at Hogwarts. He's my favorite. So, go check that out, I guess. This clip has fucking meandered. My point is that I was watching the Dick Show religiously for a really long time because listening to Dick Masterson talk, even though I already understood his general worldview and identity, hearing it applied to different scenarios over and over and over again was like a source of strength for me during a time when I am growing into adulthood, and as somebody who has always been somewhat, I don't want to say meek, because if I am pushed, I will push back, but I shy away from getting pushed. I do everything in my power to avoid making anyone want to push me. You know, I'm just a guy who avoids conflict for the most part, but like, you know, and when I get into conflict, my aim is to end it peacefully and with understanding, but like, I would say that I am more willing to engage in conflict now because of the Dick Show, because of the fact that this person who lives a life that is similar enough, lives a life and is interested in things like I am. Like, I see him as, had I grown up in the time that he grew up, I would have pretty much been this kind of guy, you know? But like, and granted, not to say that I agree with everything he does or that I completely identify with him like 100%, and that's why I need to be my own voice, because like if I thought Dick just perfectly represented everything I had to say, there'd be no reason for me to make videos. If I thought Jesse perfectly represented everything I had to say, there'd be no need for me to make videos. But you know, I have a lot more detail to go into than anybody else, because that's what I focus on. I'm a spiral of detail because the detail's all that's left. If you've covered all the broad concepts, the details are the only things left to sort out. And sometimes one detail might seem minor, but it breaks the whole goddamn thing! So yes, the purpose of the GEKKO estate is essentially brain bleach. It's to keep my voice and ideology and persona in your mind as much as humanly possible every single day for like an hour, and to try to keep it engaging so that you'll just keep fucking listening to me. But the thing is, the reason I have to do it this way is that freak power, what it stands for. This, I close my eyes and seize it, I clench my fists and beat it, I light my torch and burn it, I am the beast I worship, Satan guy, Devilman shit, Death Grips, 2018, Year of the Snitch, looking forward to it. The thing about that whole identity is that be the freak you want to see, just don't follow me, as MC Ride said. The idea is that it's not a movement. It's not a club. It's not an identity you can latch onto. That is the problem with trying to promote this sort of, you know, libertarian, la vie boheme, be the freak you want to see lifestyle, is that it is like, you know, there's no flag to wave, because the point of it is that you wave your own flag. But people who can't find a flag, who don't know their identity, especially if they're younger and they don't, there's just nothing for them to cling to in their surroundings because they're in such a limited bubble, because the world is small that they are inhabiting, even though the entire world is small, and to them they think it's a big wide world and they're trapped in the little room, but it's not. It's a fucking tiny world that you can step across in a few fucking steps. Yesterday I took acid and I realized that my entire life takes place in 7 steps up the street. You know, my house occupies 7 steps. Your life is small, but it's in a world of small people. I'll talk about this more in the serialization segment. Point being simply that you need to be yourself. How do you latch onto that? You can't. But, you know, people who latch onto identities are the people who we need to be helping to find an identity. That should be your mission. Don't latch onto someone else's shit. Just make your own shit. Figure it out. Dedicate every day and every minute to figuring it out. Fucking bleed and sweat and cry and fucking wring your hands till they're fucking dust trying to figure that shit out, because it's the only way you get here. You need somewhere to look for meaning. If you need some god to pray to the very first single-cell organism that formed in the primordial ooze and for some reason was so dedicated to propagating life that it evolved for billions of years to get to you and continue its mission. Continue to try to live for as long as you can. The way we've done it so far is exclusively via evolution, and if we continue to evolve, there is a chance that we might be able to defeat our ultimate enemy, death, and entropy of the universe. We have no idea if that's possible, but there is nothing else to fight for. This is the end game. We have to beat death. It's been our enemy since day one, and our only apparent purpose that is gifted to us from the beginning is to live and propagate life. All of our instincts tell us to not die. Even if we constantly think about dying, our bodies betray us in that regard unless we are fucking broken. That's how fucking much we want to live. That's the purpose that is inherent to your existence, whether you like it or not. But how doth life? Well, myriad ways. Throw yourself in. Figure it out. That's the mission. There's no reason to really focus on anything else. A lot of people seem like they try to push figuring themselves out into the background again and again and again because it's not practical. But it's the only thing that's practical. Because you continuing to do menial labor that could be supplanted by robots, the only reason we need to even give people jobs that robots could do, like for instance, cashiers, you're useless. There's no need for human cashiers anymore except to assist people who somehow don't understand the machines. I mean, the Amazon stores that they have now where they don't even have people manning them. It's just like an automatic store. I don't know if those are actually out yet, but they're, you know, it's something they're trying to do because they free up people to go and figure out what they individually have to offer the world. And you should never stop trying to find new ways to do things, even if you think you figured it out. Because there's a chance that either you have more than one talent, or that there's something else that's even better than what you were already doing, you know? I've known a lot of people who are successful in a creative art for years, then they get tired of it, or they find another one that they like more. Tom Oliver, who has been, you know, doing, like, 2D art, comics, writing, he's tried all these different mediums, found 3D, doing 3D modeling, and realized, like, oh my god, this is the first time I've loved doing art, you know, and now that's, like, he's dedicated everything to that, because it's actually satisfying for him. So, you just need to constantly keep in your mind that the most important thing that humans can do is evolve and embrace our specificity, because our specificity is the key to evolution. It's that experimentation, it's that constant drive to do it a little different and see if that's better. You know, and like my videos, evolution is sometimes slow and meticulous, because what I'm looking at might be, well, in this one I cut all the clips like 1 second before the end, and on that one I cut them all 2 seconds before the end, and like it's a huge difference in timing, but like people are like, it's just 2 vlogs, what do you mean you put way more effort into editing it, you know? Like, but nonetheless, you know, you get the fucking point. Alright, here's my schedule for the very near future. I am doing the live stream today, but you're not going to see that today because this video is not that day. Maybe there is one. No, there wouldn't be one on the same day I released a video. So never mind. Look at the description to figure out when the live streams are. Those are happening pretty regularly. Ghiblicast, My Neighbor Totoro, probably coming out after this video. So that's a thing. We've got the How They Marketed episode 1 is what I'm going to be diving into, working on full-time until it's done as soon as this vlog is over. I felt like I needed to get this vlog off of my chest to sort of explain to people why How They Marketed was going to take some time to do, because like the only thing that really gives it meaning is the fact that it's a big project that takes a lot of time and effort to do. So, you know, like, in the meantime, here's these fun vlogs. But, you know, I already know what the next one's going to be about. Episode 5 is going to be miscommunication. It's going to be about why and how everyone fucking doesn't understand each other. Then, also, there will be, the Denzel Curry documentary. As soon as I'm done with How They Marketed, that's what I'm going right into. Gonna knock that shit out, and then after that, probably that'll take me the rest of June. So, you know, there'll be more live streams and vlogs as, like, the regular content, And fucking on corrupting your kids, we've brought back the randomly watching seasonal shit with us. It makes a little more sense. You can actually just watch it on screen with us now on the TV. In episode 1, it was really blown out and looks like shit for like parts that are bright, but you get enough. If you watch the shows with us, you'll be able to see the details that we complained about. Anyways, so there's that, and then we're also bringing back Comfy Cast soon. We recorded like 45 minutes of one, but then we passed out because it's too fucking comfy. I was on the latest PCP. I don't know if that's before or after this video. I do lots of things. Just follow the goddamn every YouTube video featuring Digibro fucking playlist, and also subscribe to the Patreon if you want to keep up with all the other stuff. Oh, I was thinking of making in my Patreon Discord a board for flash fictions where I and whoever else wants to can post their flash fictions. They're 55 words or less. Not even necessarily fictions, just flash prose. Just whatever you want. Like a Borhe.
To me, the video is everything. It's everything that I was. It represents my entire journey. Everything I've ever thought or felt. Everything I had inside me when I made it. Putting it into words feels like trying to sing a painting. Almost like some kind of icky betrayal. I mean, the video is already in words. It describes itself. The best way to explain it to you is to just point at it and say, "Pay attention, you idiots!" But fine, here I go. Here's the part you've all been waiting for. What is Horseshoe Finale? Horseshoe Finale is a portrait of an artist, and of every artist. It's the story of creative people, and of the trials and tribulations inherent to pursuing a creative lifestyle. It's an autobiographical tale, it's a cautionary tale, it's a satire of reviewers and critics, it's a parody of bronies, it's a parody of myself. It's an experiment in kayfabe, an exercise in meta, a thesis on self-awareness and self-actualization. It is a reflection and a promise. It's a monument to artistic ambition, creative vision, and refusal to compromise. For me, it's a testament to the fact that I have the talent and the ability and the cleverness to create any insane thing I set my mind to. It's a testament to independence, to creating something from start to finish completely on your own, making a plan and following through with nobody's help, while at the same time acknowledging the indirect help of the friends, colleagues, and role models that shape us into who we are in the first place. It's a story about spitting in the world's eye and saying, "Fuck you, I have a crazy idea, and I'm not just gonna do it, I'm gonna do it my way, even if it fucking destroys me." It's putting a flag in the ground and saying, even if you know that no one is going to understand or appreciate your art like you do, make it anyways, because that's the art that matters most.
You can't be like looking at me like that. I won't be able to be serious.
Find a different way to look at you.
You can look at me through the glass if you want, like through the. That's good. That's good. You can do that. All right.